I had a moment of panic as well because I was at work and they have these calculators that you can use to calculate out your retirement based on what you're making, based on if you know, got 3% raises, so on and so forth. And what I realized is that based on what I was making, and I work in nonprofit education, so you can put two and two together. Based on what I was making at retirement age, based on what I was contributing, and based on how I wanted to live by then, the money would not last that long.
Welcome to House Rich, the real estate show where we interview average people that have done above average things in real estate. Today's guest is Samuel Dolciné. He's the host of Black Real Estate Dialogue, one of the most popular real estate shows out there as far as a podcast. Kind of an inspiration for me as a new podcaster as well. I'm super excited to have him on the guest to talk about how to start a successful podcast, out-of-state real estate investing, and just some of the amazing guests he's had on as well, and just the kind of the emphasis he put on, making sure that he's teaching and promoting Black stories in real estate, which is something that I really don't see any other podcast really doing. So you want to give the folks your intro or introduce yourself as well?
Yes, thank you, man. Really, really appreciate your kind words. So I'm Sam. I currently live in LA. Been in LA for a little over 5 years. I'm from Brooklyn, New York. I started the Black Real Estate Dialogue in 2019. Also invest in real estate, and I'm slowly growing my portfolio out of state. But yeah, I love real estate. I love helping the community find out ways to invest in real estate and to build wealth via real estate. And so pleasure to be on, and I'm excited for our conversation, man.
Okay, cool. Thank you. So really first, what inspired you to start a podcast? I mean, I think it's a lot more popular now than it was. I think it started in 2019. So yeah. What made you say, hey, I'm starting a podcast?
Man, I love that. I love that you mentioned that. And I gotta tell my guy Josh, on every podcast I'm on, I'm shouting you out because it started in the summer of 2019. And around that time, I was really getting into I really got put on to like wealth and building wealth. And I just had a moment, right? Started listening to different shows, and I had a moment of panic as well because I was at work and they have these calculators that you can use to calculate out your retirement based on what you're making, based on if you got 3% raises, so on and so forth. And what I realized is that based on what I was making, and I work in nonprofit education, so you can put two and two together. Based on what I was making at retirement age, based on what I was contributing, and based on how I wanted to live by then, the money would not last that long. So I'm like, I got to figure something out. And so I'm like, all right, I started reading books. I started listening to different shows, and I'm like, real estate, it seems like something that I can look into. And I'm listening to podcasts, and I kid you not, there's a moment came, and I'm like, let me research Black Real Estate Podcast. And I went to the Apple app and put in Black Real Estate Podcast, and I could not find anything.
Yeah.
And so I'm not having any media background. At that point, I was off social media for like 3 years, more or less. Mm-hmm. And I'm with my guy, Josh, in his new apartment. And I'm like, man, what do you think if I started a podcast about interviewing Black real estate investors? Because in my mind, I'm like, I can't find it. It's probably out there in some form. I just can't find it. Maybe I'm not smart enough to find it. And so he said, do it. That's all he said. It wasn't a long conversation. It was not no business plan, nothing. He said, do it. He's an architect by trade, and he has a background in design as well. So he designed the first logo. He does all the design now.
Okay.
And that was in the summer. And I started the Instagram page in September 2019. The first episode came out, I believe, October 15th, 2019. And we just been going since then. So it wasn't like a big deliberation. It was more so I saw a need that I thought I could fill somehow and help the community. And, I was like, all right, hopefully people want to be on the show. And here we are. We just hit 100 episodes last week, and, thank God, we're still going, man. So that's the reason I started it.
Okay. And so I went back and listened to your first episode. To me, it was I really enjoyed it. It felt like almost, I don't did you write down like the whole episode or was that kind of like off
I
the top
did.
of your dome?
I did.
Okay, because I was like, this is very eloquent and laid out. I was like, wow, for a first episode of a podcast, like this is like amazing. So you wrote that out.
Yeah, yeah. I
Okay.
probably still got that Google Doc somewhere, but I had it recorded and I was just like looking at it for reference, making sure I hit all my points.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, because I was listening, I was like, wow, if this guy is off the top of his
Well,
head with this first episode, that is crazy.
well, thank you for
But
going all the way back. Appreciate that, man. I
but yeah,
didn't know
it
you
was
did that.
cool because basically, I recommend everybody listen to the first episode of his podcast. It's somewhere to start. I don't know if you have a better place to start in your opinion, but I think it's cool because he kind of lays out what the podcast is. The journey of a real estate investor. I know you started it on Columbus Day, just
Yeah.
coincidentally there. So it was real dope to kind of hear you lay out what the mission was. Like honestly, so nicely there. So um as far as going back and like exploring like black stories, I know you may not have like a favorite guest. You can't say you had a favorite guest, but like what are some key takeaways you've had in kind of like your journey in interviewing guests, whether you learned something or just something you maybe found out about yourself?
Yeah, man. So when you say that, it's a couple of guests that stand out, and one of them is KR. KR. So I interviewed him, I believe, in the beginning of 2020, 2021. And so this brother, he grew up poor in Philly, moved around a lot. He's what he says is he became a professional renter, and he decided that he got a PhD in renting, something like that. He decided that his path was going to be different. So he,
Okay.
matriculated through high school, college. He started working on Wall Street, and he just started with, I believe, in 2009, he started buying properties, and he just went slowly, one a year, a couple a year, saving all his money, saving all his bonuses, building up his team. And when the pandemic hit, he went crazy. Like he bought like probably over 50 units, and now he has probably like 100 or so now. But what I really like about it is he put his whole family on. So
Okay.
his family members are helping manage the properties, helping clean the properties. I believe his brother is his broker. So, his big thing is transformational wealth. And so he's putting his family in position now to be part of the business, right?
Okay.
And so that's what I never heard a story like that. That's one of the most unique stories I've heard, because he was very meticulous and intentional about it. And thankfully, KR and I, we talk on a personal level. And so I'm able to gain a lot of great insight from him.
Okay.
But I got to respect that, because a lot of times, and it's not wrong. Like a lot of times, we're trying to build for the next generation. However, his thing was like, we can do both, right?
Yeah.
Like he has his his younger relatives interning, and he keeps everything in house. And I'm like, man, that's really dope. That's really dope. So that's one guest that stands out. I don't know if you want me to say another one. I don't want to keep rambling on.
So yeah, we can jump back to that because I actually don't want
Yeah.
to kind of jump more into the podcasting itself. Because
Yeah.
I know in my journey, I'm on like this. I think you're like this is like the 10th episode. How do you get, just for the folks, how do you get
Mhm.
your words to iTunes? Like you can't go through several podcasts. I think it's a
Yeah.
lot easier than folks may think it is for
Yeah.
somebody that's thinking, hey, I want to start a podcast myself.
Yeah. So, it's funny. I had to find out that you can't just like go to iTunes or go to Apple Podcasts and upload your stuff. And
Uh-huh.
I stumbled upon this, and I was just doing research, just diving and doing research. And basically, you need to get a podcast. You need to sign up for a podcast hosting service. So whether that's Podomatic, whether that's Anchor, there's a number of them that you can use, but you need to have some type of platform that's going to distribute your podcast to different platforms. So right now I use Podomatic. I'm probably going to be switching to Buzzsprout. But what it does is it generates something called an RSS feed. And this RSS feed is what is pushed out to Apple, what is pushed out to Spotify. And usually the platforms, most platforms automatically push out to the other, most podcast hosting platforms automatically push out to your Apples, to your Spotify's, your iHearts. In some cases, you might have to independently register for certain places and paste your RSS feed. But essentially, when you upload to that platform, it's going to then push out to Apple, Spotify, and all those things. And obviously, YouTube is a lot more straightforward. You upload your videos up there, but you need some type of platform that's going to produce an RSS feed and then push out to everywhere else.
Oh, thank you. And as far as like a host, do you have as far as hosts, is there one you recommend? I know you said you're looking maybe to switch hosts, and why is that? Just curious.
Yeah. So with Podomatic, it gets the job done. However, the functionality is pretty limited, and I want a lot better analytics. And they also did something to the point where each episode has to be numbered. So you can't necessarily, let's say you wanted the episode to be bonus episode X, Y, and Z, or you just wanted a title that's not numbered. For whatever reason, they don't allow that. And I'm releasing multiple times a week now. So that's not going to work for me.
Okay.
And again, I want better analytics. The analytics on Podomatic are pretty limited. Like I'm not able to see, I'm able to see the countries listeners are coming from, but I'm not able to see things like, what cities, where most of the downloads coming from. Like for me, like I'm at a point now where I want that data.
Yeah.
And so, there's a number of them though. You really have to weigh a lot of the cost and benefits. Some of them are free, some of them are not. Some of them have storage limits. Some are unlimited storage. Some have limits based on, how many episodes you want to upload there. So there's a whole lot of things that you need to look at. But Anchor, I know, is popular. Buzzsprout, of course. Podomatic is probably not as popular, but that's what I've been using the last couple of years. So there's a whole lot of them. There's a whole lot of them. Effectively, they do the same thing. They'll get your stuff out there, but you want to look at, what are the other things you may want. So like analytics, pricing, or different things like that. Some of them offer, I think Buzzsprout offers transcription for like 25 cents a minute or something like that. So you want to just look at all these factors and determine which one will work well for you.
Oh, okay. Thank you. And as far as like equipment, what's your equipment setup from when you just started versus like today? I don't know if it's the same thing.
Yeah. So I didn't even have a personal laptop. So I bought this HP that I'm on right now for $100 or so. And then I bought this mic as well. I forgot the name of this mic. It's very typical mic. Can't remember the name of it right now. So that's what I started with. I didn't have any lights. I was just in my 300 square foot, maybe studio apartment, my laptop with my mic. Last year I invested in some more equipment. So I have these lights that you see right here to my left and to my right. I have a boom arm for the mic now. So, a bit of an upgrade. I want to do another upgrade though, to get some better equipment and have like an external camera. So it's not just on the laptop. So that's an investment I'm going to make this year. But yeah, that's kind of where I started. I kept it and keep it simple. Like I like to tell people, you just need a mic, you need a mic. Some people you may not even have a mic. That doesn't mean you shouldn't start your podcast. If you have just a laptop, if you have just a phone, you can do it on Anchor with a phone. So, I say start where you are, and those that rock with you, they'll see the improvement, right? I didn't have a producer in the beginning. I was producing my own stuff for like at least a year. I don't think I started having a producer produce every episode until I believe maybe last year, like a year or so. So I have a producer who helps me out now, and I just send him the content, and he does his thing. So, I say start where you are. If you want to start a podcast, like you don't need all the bells and whistles. Like you don't need a studio. Like I'm in my apartment right now. You don't need a studio. Like, I'm in my apartment. The couch is over there. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like a lot of people prohibit themselves from starting because they don't have all the bells and whistles. But if you look at, Earn Your Leisure, I'm sure everybody knows Earn Your Leisure. They say it all the time, iPhone and an idea. They didn't have everything. Like they used to be in the dining room, like they didn't have everything. But now I think I saw a video today. They have a studio in Atlanta now. Like they're
I just saw that too.
They scaled, right? So if you want to start a podcast, just start where you are, and you never know what'll happen.
Oh, okay, thank you. And you mentioned the decision to go from editing stuff yourself to working with the producer. Could you go over how you edit your podcast, like what or how you used to, and what stuff you used to use to edit it, and what made you actually decide to actually, hey, it's time to pay somebody now?
Yeah, so I use Audacity. And so it's a free software actually that you can use to edit, to record and stuff. And I just had to accept the fact that this is not my ministry, if you will. Like I'm not good at it. Like I don't know how to make the sounds come together. I don't know how to do all the stuff. Like, You know what I'm saying? And I had a producer start to make some, like Donald the Voice is his name.
Yeah.
I had him start to make some commercials for me that I used to put on myself. And then after a while, I'm just like, man, like, let me just, I know eventually I want to work with him. And I knew like when I got to a point where it was feasible for me, I would, because it's just one less thing I have to do. Like the content is recorded. The introduction is recorded. I send it off to him. He sends it back. It's uploaded and boom, you know? So I'm not good at it and I had no desire to be good at it. So I just decided when the time was right, I'm going to outsource this to someone who's good at it. And again, I was doing my own thing for a year plus, but I wanted to make sure I improved the quality. And last year was probably the best quality we've had in a minute. Thanks to Donald. So that's what I would say.
Oh, okay, awesome. Makes sense. So at what point would you say that you make the decision to, or I don't know if you made the decision to actively like monetize the podcast? I know like pretty much you're running commercials for your own community at this point. What's the decision to do that versus like, outside advertising and stuff on your podcast? Just why the choice? Just curious.
Yeah, that's the goal. That's the goal to get outside advertising and sponsors. But, in the beginning, I'm like, I need something running. Something needs to be promoted, So I'm like, I'll start promoting my stuff. And then when it's time, when I'm able to get these deals signed and so forth, we'll replace that with people paying to be on the platform. So, for me, in the beginning, it's just like I heard other podcasts, they're advertising their stuff. I'm like, well, why don't I advertise my stuff? And they say people need 7 times to hear something before they buy it, right? So who knows, like, who's listening to the podcast, and they might be hearing this ad for like the 50th time, maybe the 51st time they'll buy, But that was it for me. Just hearing other podcasts, and then eventually, like when I realized, like, oh wow, like people pay for ad spots and stuff like that, I'm like, okay, that's something that I want to get into as well. So that's what I would say.
Okay, good. Thank you. And then what's one thing that you may have picked up, like, I don't know, in the last 100 or so episodes, that like, hey, I probably only know this because I've recorded 100 episodes. There's like something you kind of picked up along the way that you just kind of learned from experience?
I would say broadly, you mean like real estate wise or just in general?
Just run just from just being a podcaster, whether real estate wise or picked up as far as running a podcast.
Yeah. So one thing I would say is it's important to be a learner. It's important to like, this might surprise people, but I don't listen to my podcast that much. I listen to a lot of other podcasts because I'm always doing market research. I'm always seeing what people are doing. I get so many ideas from other shows. It's not even funny. Like ideas that I implement, different tactics and things, because I want to see how people do it, especially the best. Like I want to see how they do what they do, so I can implement it where I am. And so I would say that like I learned to be a learner, and a lot of like my guests are learners too. That's how they've gotten better in real estate. That's how they've improved their practice and whatever their specialty is within real estate. Like you have to always be a student. You have to always be willing to learn. Like I don't think I'm the best podcaster in the world. I'm not even close. However, I can implement the things that the best podcasters do. Gotcha. And, hopefully it'll help me along the way. So that's what I would say for sure.
Cool. Yeah. Just if somebody's doing something good, just copy it, put your own little sauce for the beer. You can just copy, add a little bit on it. What are some of your favorite podcasts to one to just listen to and one to, kind of, take notes from?
Yeah. Glad you mentioned that. So I like Earn Your Leisure. Of course, I was watching the episode last night with my wife. So Earn Your Leisure, definitely. Black Wealth Renaissance. Shout out to those brothers. Graciously having me on their platform. The Social Proof podcast I like a lot. David Shan is really dope. I got a lot of cool ideas from David. Let's see. I said Black Wealth Renaissance. Tweet Talk podcast I like a lot. My guy Raphael, just talking to him today. And Charles. I would say those are probably the ones that are mostly in rotation.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I got into podcasting from David Shan's Social Proof. So I took his like 5-day podcast challenge, and so I was like,
oh cool,
now it's time to start this thing up. So yeah, it was super informative. Yeah, he's really doing this thing there. So
Yeah, I did the Launch Your Podcast challenge, I think in September. I wasn't able to make it to all the sessions, but the ones that I did, I took some good notes. Like, you know, I love that kind of stuff, man.
Yeah.
Like I said, I have a podcast. It doesn't matter. Like if someone is having a session or a course, what was it like? Not even $100.
Yeah,
Um,
$97 for like it, and it was like honestly, if it was $499, I thought it'd been worth it or whatever. Like it
oh
was
yeah,
a lot of good information. I was like, wow, like I didn't know what to expect, but I was like, wow, this is a lot of good information for just a little bit of money. So
yeah, man. So maybe did you go in September as well, or was it another
no,
month? I
I
wonder if
went
we
in
have.
no November. So it was like right before Thanksgiving. I remember I
Okay.
was like and so yeah, I started my podcast the week of Thanksgiving because I was like, if I don't start it now, I'm going to give some excuse on let me wait to the new year and all that. So yeah, I think I got my mic Black Friday and then I started it the very next week. So
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
amazing, man.
And so you're out in LA, but obviously it's kind of hard to buy property in LA. So you looked at basically out of state investing. So what made you think, hey, it's expensive in LA, let me go buy a property in the Midwest?
Yeah. So I had a humbling moment with my real estate guy out here. I said, I want to invest in real estate. And he ended up being on the show, actually, Odess Riley Jr. So I'm like, yeah, I want to invest in real estate. This is probably like 2018, maybe. He's like, yeah, I want to invest in real estate. Here's my qualification. Here's my finances. We did like some spreadsheet. And he's like, well, you can qualify for a condo in Long Beach if you want. But that's about it. And I said, what do you mean that's about it? He's like, based on your financials, that's probably all you're gonna get qualified for. I'm like, I don't want no condo in Long Beach. Like, I
Right.
don't want to. I mean, I love Long Beach, but I'm not trying to buy no condo. I'm trying to buy like I want units.
Yeah, yeah.
And so at that point, I'm like, all right, it don't seem like LA's in the cards right now. And I just started researching everything. I started listening to Bigger Pockets,
Mhm.
started getting tapped into their platform, and I stumbled upon out of state investing. And I said, wait a minute. Everybody I know who has a property or maybe two, they could walk to them or drive to them in a couple minutes. And I'm like, wait, people, you could do that? You can live in one place and invest in the other. It might seem so obvious to people, but I've never been exposed to that.
Uh-huh.
And so I started reading everything. I started reading everything about it. And I knew that was going to have to be the way that I did it because of the situation I was in. I couldn't afford here. So I'm like, you know what? Let's try this out of state thing. Let me try to just learn everything I can. And when there's an opportunity that presents itself, I'm going to pull the trigger.
So how did you end up choosing like a market in the first place? Obviously there's the whole country. What made you like, hey, I'm going here?
Yeah. So for me, I did a lot of research, but I did get connected to some folks in Dayton, Ohio, and they sent me their market report. But I also did my own research and discovered that there were a lot of industries that were thriving there, a
Mhm.
lot of jobs coming back to there, a lot of investment into the infrastructure of the city, and a lot of investment into the downtown, high percentage of renters as well. So I'm like, you know what? This seems like a place that's not popular as well. It's not popular. It's a different volume now, but it's not popular. So
Mhm.
I'm like, I think these are all good signs of a good place to invest in. And so when there was an opportunity, I jumped on it. Was able to purchase my first property. But I would say I did my market research, and those are just like some of the indicators
Mhm.
that I used. But definitely very important to the market research, and that's what let me know that that was a place where I wanted to invest.
Okay, cool. Thank you. And I think specifically you were looking at like turnkey investing, basically a ready to go property. And can you talk about like your decision to go with something like that, being a new investor versus trying to take on you see all the shows where folks are just you pay a contractor, they're flipping it, and then a week later they made $100,000. Why did you decide to go kind of the
Yeah,
safer route with the turnkey?
yeah. So by nature, I'm a risk averse person,
All right.
and the way that I was looking at that time was, all right, I want to invest in real estate. How can I do it in a way where I can build my confidence, and maybe the next time we'll do a little bit of a rehab or something like that. I wanted to take on as little risk as possible. And so that was my decision. That's why I decided to do it. Obviously, the downside of that is you buy at pretty much at market rate.
Mm-hmm.
But at that time, it was worth it for me because I knew that it would help me build my confidence and I would stay in this game. Because for a lot of people, they have a bad experience with a contractor, or maybe they buy a bad deal. Not everybody, but some people, their response to that is, I'm done with real estate. Others are like, I'm gonna figure it out and keep going. I didn't want to give myself an option to be like, no, I quit this stuff. So I'm like, let me take the safe route that'll just get my foot in the door.
Mm-hmm.
And as I learn and grow and connect with more people and learn through this podcast, I'm gonna know what to do next.
Okay.
And I'll be able to take on more next. And that was my approach to it. So I wasn't thinking so much about ARV and all these things. I'm like, what can I do to just start?
Gotcha. And so what are some challenges, if any, you've kind of had as far as managing a property, thousands of miles away, or maybe 1,500? I'm not sure how far.
Yeah.
Dayton is.
Yeah. So it's about 2,000 miles away from LA.
Okay.
So I started self-managing in the beginning of 2021.
Okay.
I just didn't like a property manager. The reason I went with them in the first place is because it was no lease-up fee. And for those who don't know, like a lease-up fee, a property manager basically would charge you a percentage of the rent, of the first month's rent, as a finder's fee, effectively.
Okay.
And then they waived that. They just placed the person. However, some of the challenges are like, you're not there, right?
Yeah.
For example, I think the dishwasher wasn't working. The tenant hit me up. They texted me and I said, all right, I'll get somebody for you. I went on Thumbtack. I found somebody. The person who did something for me before went out there again, took care of. Tenant said it's cool. I paid him. So the hardest thing is that you're not there, but it's very important to get things done through other people.
Mm-hmm.
And so, it's a challenge, right? And also I just did my first rehab last summer, from here. Like I haven't been to Dayton since November 2020, and I'm probably not going to go this year either. And so imagine that, right?
Yeah.
Doing a whole rehab from here. But thankfully I have boots on the ground. I have someone there who has a key. Like she's an investor there. We met on Bigger Pockets.
Okay.
I see her as like my aunt. Like she checks on things for me when I need her to. Like I paid her to show the property and look at stuff and make sure the contractor's doing what they're supposed to do, like popping in. So it's challenging. It's very challenging to manage all that from miles away, but it's important to have systems. It's important to get things done through other people. And, one of my past guests, Marion, he's out here. He invests in Virginia. I'd see him as like my real estate mentor. Like he held my hand through the whole rehab. He's like, this is what you do. This is how you approach it. This is how you negotiate. So, it's hard not being there, but if you have the right information and people coaching you on what to do, and then if you also have boots on the ground, it makes it a lot easier. Like I have no plans of going out there this year. I just don't have the time. Maybe next year I want to go. I do want to show my wife. But it's important to get things done to other people. It was vacant for a couple months while we rehabbed and did everything. But, we got a tenant in there. We got a good family in there now. And I have a big repair coming up in the spring, but for right now, it's pretty good.
Cool. So how do you go about building that team? Like, so I know you talk about you're on like the Bigger Pockets forum, and you're networking with your guests as well. But how do you go about, or how would you recommend just, the average person go about, building a team with an out-of-state property to make sure they have the right people to take care of the property?
The internet is your friend.
All right.
The internet is your friend. So I would say go to Facebook groups, go to forums on Bigger Pockets, see what people are talking about. You may not even have to make a post. You can see what people are talking about in that particular market, see who they recommend. All that stuff is there. Go to these Facebook groups, these investor groups in these particular cities. All the information is there. Something that was happening, well, we still are in the pandemic. I don't know if it's still going on. Some real estate investment associations are online now. They used to just be, in-person meetings, but some of them are online now. So another opportunity for out-of-towners to get into the network. So I'd say the internet is your friend. That's how I met all these great people. I finally got to meet Courtney, who helps me out in Dayton. I got to meet her like a year after we've been knowing each other. Finally got to meet her in person. And so I say the internet is your friend. You'll be surprised. Like you'll meet some really dope people who will help you out. Um, the only thing separating you is distance. You know, you can't meet them for coffee or something like that so easily, depending on how far you are. But the internet for sure.
Makes sense. Internet connecting, so it kind of flattened out Earth for us there. Um,
Mhm.
so as far as like building community as well. So I know you have like your Black Real Estate Dialogue community as well. Do you guys discuss stuff as like, maybe the next hot market? I don't know if you kind of have any recommendations for, I don't know if you want to spill the beans, but where a good market is for somebody to maybe start investing out of state. They may live in a high cost or high cost of living area like you do.
Yeah, so I would say consider the Midwest and certain parts of the South. So Ohio has a number of cities in there that I've seen people invest in. So you have your Dayton, of course, Ohio, Dayton, Cincinnati, Cleveland. I've even seen people talk about Akron.
Okay.
So different parts of Ohio I would consider. Um, Indianapolis, I know people invest there. Alabama, Arkansas are other states that I've seen people invest in. Louisiana, it's pretty fairly cheap properties there. We have probably like 4 or 5 guests, a bunch of brothers down there who are just killing it.
Okay.
The properties are super, super inexpensive. Um, so honestly, even some parts of Florida, Atlanta's kind of expensive now, but the Carolinas too, just depending where you're at. But there's so many opportunities. Those are just a few. But those are some states to definitely look into those markets, see what kind of actions going there, see what kind
Okay.
of pricing is going there, rents and so forth. But yeah, Midwest and South are good starting point.
And what are some common characteristics between those markets where it's like, hey, they have to have, boom, boom, and boom, and that it may make sense to invest in the market with these aspects, whatever they may be.
Yeah, so I would say for everyone is different, but what I like is being in a city that is on the path of growth.
Okay.
I don't, this is just me. This is not professional advice. It's just my opinion.
Okay.
But I like investing in, for me, I like cities that are on the path of growth, where there are jobs coming, where, the rents are good in comparison to the prices. That's what I like. Growth. Are they investing in the infrastructure? Every city that's doing something for the city will let you know.
Okay.
Like Dayton has a downtown Dayton website. If they're putting money into something in that city, they will let you know. I recommend cities that are on the way up, that are not cities that are declining, not cities where there are not no jobs, or not cities where there's just one big employer, because if they leave,
Yeah.
your tenants ain't gonna have no jobs. So that's something I recommend looking for. I say, generally speaking, I would say growth. Not everybody's like that. Some people see it differently, but that's just my personal opinion. I love seeing cities um, that are heading on the way up.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Um, and as far as like how do you go about determining like what someplace even rents for? Like how do you figure that out on your end?
I'm glad you asked. So there's rental meter.
Mm.
So rental meter allows you to um, let's say you can do this where you live at, right? So put in your zip code, you put in the property type, you put in the rent you want to charge, and it has a meter that says if your rent is just right for this area, if your rent is too low for this area, if your rent is too high for this area. Something else is Zillow. Simply just put in a zip code, and you can see what homes are going for. You can see what single family homes are going for. You can see the square footage, the bedrooms, the bathrooms, what they're renting for.
Okay.
And you can start to notice some trends. And then you can also see for the multifamily side, you can see what each unit is renting for
Okay.
within those. And so free hacks that can help you put the picture together. That's exactly what I did when I was trying to figure out how much I could charge once I have my tenant move out.
Okay.
But yeah, it's an easy way to see it, and you're able to really, especially on Zillow and Redfin, places like those, you can really zero in on like you can even zero in on a block
Uh-huh.
or like a certain zip code or a radius of blocks, and you can really get that detailed information about what those rents are.
Oh, okay, awesome, awesome. Thank you. So how do you go about screening renters? Since you're not able to meet them face to face, you're on Zoom, just a phone call. Like, how do you go about screening renters? Sorry.
Yeah. So for me, I do everything through apartments.com. But I guess I'll go with like the advertisement first. So I put it on Craigslist, I put it on Facebook Marketplace, and I put it on apartments.com, which I think pushes out to other websites. And so Facebook, I got hundreds of messages.
Okay.
And what that told me is that there's not a lot of houses for rent,
Mm-hmm.
but there's a lot of people looking.
Yeah.
And so, anyone who's interested, I have them submit an application. And what I did was um, I just had standing open house dates and times. And, just look at their applications. And if they meet the requirements, as far as if they make enough money to pay the rent and still have money to like live, um, you know, I would look into their information and ask for, call up their previous landlord, verify their employment, um, verify their income, make sure all the things match up. Because what a lot of people, let me not say a lot of people, what some people will do is put up documents where things don't add up. Like I had one person who, the application that she put, the name on the application and the name on this pay stub or 1099, whatever statement it was totally different. Like the math wasn't mathing. And so when and the same person was like hounding me, telling me, oh, I need this property, I really need to move. Like those are the people you want to stay away from.
Okay.
If you want people who things add up.
Yeah.
The name on the statements, the name on the application, the potential people who will be living in the property, all that stuff adds up. Good previous landlord reference. And you can even go so far as looking at the county records to make sure the landlord who they name actually owns the property. Because some people will just have their correct. So that's some of the things that I did to make sure that I had a good tenant. And the tenants I have now, they're great. They're really, really great. I have no complaints about them. They've been awesome. I hope they never leave.
Okay.
But those are some of the things that I did, and it's just crazy. Like I learned a whole lot. I learned a whole lot of lessons. Like the next time around, there's a whole lot of things I'm not going to do. But it took time. Like my property was vacant for like probably about 3 months.
Okay.
Part of that was due to the rehab. But it probably took me like a month or so to find the right tenant. The first person I was going to approve, some suspect stuff happened, and they kind of ghosted, tried to come back in the picture, but I didn't even reply to them. So I waited, like my holding costs aren't that much. Pay whatever bills and pay the mortgage till somebody moved back in there, and now we're good.
Cool. So what are some of those things you're not going to do? Like what lessons learned going forward?
Yeah. So going forward, no more one-off open houses, because some people don't show up or they forget. Okay. And the thing is, I'm paying out of my pocket for my boots on the ground to be there for however long she's there, 15, 20. I'm paying her for her time. That adds up. And I'm wasting her time too, right? Yeah. Because if people don't show up, that's a waste of time. So what I started to do is like, all right, this is the date. This is the time. If you're interested, come see it during this period of time. That's when we're going to be there. And that's it. So, that's something I would do differently. Something else I would do differently. So it's funny. I didn't realize that apartments.com charged people for their application. So I'm here advertising it as, oh, it's a free application. And it's not, because they pay, I think the platform, maybe like $25 or something like that for the background check. And I didn't know that. And so some people were like, wait, I thought it was free and so on and so forth. So I just didn't know. But now, if I use the same platform, I'll know. So that's something else that I would say I would do differently. Yeah, I think those are the main two things. Just try to be more efficient. But sometimes you get to a point where you're just trying to get somebody in there. You're just trying to get people to be able to see it. But, you just got to be patient. I'm glad I was patient.
Okay, cool. Thank you. And you kind of covered it a little bit, but are there any other kind of like red flags because somebody may be in a market where it's not as popular, so they may have to they may not have like a plethora of people that are applying. So what are like some red flags that you've kind of seen in your time where you say, hey, this is probably not a good tenant, no matter how desperately I need to fill this this unit?
People who are hitting you up all the time. So people who are hitting you up every day. Did you fill it? what's my application status? I really need to move in. People who say, oh, I have 3 months or 6 months cash up front. That's something you want to stay away from, because in some cases, one, that's great. I don't know where you got that money from. Where do you work? Where do you work? Where's your check coming in from? So that's one thing. I would say those are some red flags I would say to be mindful of, because that's just like a headache waiting to happen.
Okay. Makes sense there. And then jumping into your community, like what are some of the things you talk about in your online community?
Yeah, so we actually just got off a session just now. So the Bread Investing community is really a community and a safe space for people who are currently investing, people who want to invest. And the way it's structured is we have a private Slack group where people can network and talk to each other. We also have guest speaker sessions. So we have 2 guest speaker sessions per month from experienced investors in different areas of real estate. They talk about various topics. So the format, it depends. Sometimes it's like a talk where it's really built around the instructor, because some people, they just like talking, and sharing their points. Others, they like having PowerPoint presentations alongside. But the focus is in certain area of real estate. So today we did how to buy correctly. And so it's a great opportunity because a lot of these are all of these really, for the most part, are my past podcast guests. Okay. And the cool thing about a podcast is cool because you get information, but you can't ask a question in response to something you heard on the podcast. Yeah. More than likely, if you want that, you're going to have to pay for a consultation or something like that. Whereas if you're part of the community, like today, like people were asking specific questions like, hey, I want to do a fix and flip. These are the numbers. What do you think? You get an answer, So that is like the breakdown of it. And I didn't have that when I started investing, right? Yeah. I just figured it out. I bumped my head a whole lot of times. Mm-hmm. And, thankfully, due to this podcast, I have a lot of information and access to people and information to avoid some mistakes. But, I made it because I didn't have it. And so, we had a dope session, and we have, some members who are really active in the mm-hmm. live events. And some people, they kind of like being on their own and watching the replays. Yeah. But the replays are up. We revamped it last year, and looking forward to this year. We got some really dope classes coming up this year. So, it's just been great.
Okay, awesome. It's just $1 to join, right?
Just $1 to join. So for $1, you get a 7-day free trial. So you can check out the content. If there's a session during that week, you can attend that. And then after that, it's $39.99 a month. So like, what's that? $1.25 a day or $1 a day or something like that. Yeah. So pretty affordable. I try to keep it affordable for people so they can take that big money to invest.
Okay, dope. And we'll have the link for the community in the YouTube or the podcast, wherever you're watching this.
Appreciate that.
When we first started, I kind of got ahead of myself. I was asking about the podcast. You mentioned like you mentioned your favorite, not that was your favorite, but you mentioned a guest you liked a lot. Then you were about to mention another guest. Kind of what is maybe like the number 2, I don't want to say favorite, but you know what I mean? Like a memorable guest, I guess.
Yeah, I'll say top of mind because goodness, 100 people, it's a whole lot. But the second, he actually just taught a session, so that's probably why I'm thinking about him. Welby Aselli.
Yeah, he got a lot of energy.
Yeah, at my best 197. You can't forget that. Yeah. But what I appreciate about him is his authenticity. Like he'll show you the receipts. He'll show you the receipts. He will let you know what he's doing, and that what he's doing is real. And I appreciate that because the reality of it is there's a lot of Instagram business people, Instagram investors, and it's not always easy to verify that what people are saying is true. Yeah. And so when people put it out and provide you with the facts and the LLCs and the addresses and all these things, the mortgage statements, when people are willing and tell you, hey, if you want to check me, I would like for you to, so that what I'm saying is real. So I appreciate that about him. And there's one thing that he mentioned during our interview. I'll just never forget it. I think I asked him, how many doors do you have? He said, I don't like talking about doors because it's a misrepresentation of the performance. Okay. You can have somebody with 100 doors. You can have somebody with 30 doors. Most people are inclined to say, I want to be the person with 100 doors, not 30 doors. But the thing is that the person with 30 doors could be making way more net profit per month than the person with 100 doors. And so, obviously, like talking about doors, it grabs attention, right? I mean, I do it all the time, right? It grabs attention.
Yeah.
However, marketing is marketing, right? But like, it's important to understand, like, you don't necessarily need 50, 60, 70, 100, 200. You don't necessarily need that many doors to make a lot of money. Like, you just got to know how to buy correctly. And so that's one thing that I appreciate about him. And then similarly, with that being said, he's also happy to show you what he's doing and show you the receipts. You know what I'm saying? So I appreciate that. I appreciate that. But yeah, we've had some amazing guests, man, who are doing some dope things.
Yeah, I remember listening to that episode, like talking about getting swindled out of money with his partner and all.
Yeah,
and all,
he's been through a lot.
I really like him because he'll tell you the bad. It seems like he's more he likes to tell you the bad more than the good. He doesn't want anybody to think everything's just so sweet. Like folks make it out to be buy a property, cash flow, kick the feet up. Like that's how real estate investing seems on the internet. So enjoy his unique perspective.
Oh yeah.
or things there. So I say appreciate your time. Learned a lot there from podcasting to your out of state investing to the podcast itself. I recommend everybody check out his podcast. I have one final question I always ask my guests.
Of course.
So let's say you have I give you $1 million, you have 1 week to spend it, you got to spend it all. What would you do on real estate adjacent stuff? Like what would you do with it?
Yeah, wow. $1 million. So one, I would upgrade my setup for the podcast.
All right.
Just get like the best equipment I could for the best price. So that's one thing I would do. And I got to spend it all on real estate adjacent stuff, or
like I say real estate adjacent. It doesn't have to be a house. It can be something real estate related.
Yeah. Man, does it have to be like business investments type stuff, or just like what I was spending on in general?
Yeah, just whatever. Anything to do with real estate.
So I'll upgrade this stuff. I'll buy more properties for sure. I don't know where. I'm trying to find like the next great market. So I'll buy properties for sure. Maybe I'll become like a hard money lender.
All right.
Maybe I'll become a hard money lender or something. And start lending some of that money.
Okay.
To people who are trying to do different real estate projects. So whether that be flips, buy and holds, BRRRR, what have you. Man, yeah, I think that's it. I think that's all I can think of. Yeah, that's the tough question, man. I guess I can't have $1 million. I don't know what I'll do with it.
If you stumble across an opportunity, I think I'm sure you can think of something to do with it. Yeah, cool. Like I said, appreciate your time. Where can the folks kind of find you again on wherever you may be found?
Yeah, so primarily on Instagram at Black Real Estate Dialogue. I only have one page, Black Real Estate Dialogue. It's been a lot of fake pages these days. Black Real Estate Dialogue, that is it. That's the only one you'll hear me say on the podcast. And then website is blackrealestatedialogue.com. You can find all the resources there, the out-of-state course, community, links to the podcast. You can contact me through there as well. Or you can contact me on Instagram as well. But yeah, primarily those two places. That's where you can find me. Okay,
cool. Appreciate it. Like I said, once again, that'll all be in the link wherever you're watching this or listening to this podcast. So that's it for the show. Once again, thanks for your time. I do not have an outro for this podcast, and it is over.
Thank you.